For 10 years, I was the perfect wife. I was the perfect daughter-in-law. I kept a spotless house. I cooked 3-course meals every single night, and I never, ever raised my voice. I was patient. I was kind. I was a doormat. And for 10 long years, my husband and his family treated me exactly like the hired help. They mistook my kindness for weakness. They mistook my silence for stupidity. Last week, my husband, the man I loved since college, finally proved that he was, and always would be, his mother's son. And that was the end of the perfect Emily. That was the moment the woman they thought they knew, the woman they had systematically tried to erase, died. And the woman who was born in her place, well, she's the one telling this story. And she's just getting started. This is the story of how I stopped scrubbing their floors and started cleaning up my own life. It's the story of how I took back my power, my money, and my name. If you believe that a woman's kindness is her strength, not a weakness to be exploited, then do me a favor. Hit that like button, comment, "Go Emily," down below, and make sure you subscribe to Aunt Millie's Tales. Trust me, you are not going to want to miss what happens next. It all started, as these things so often do, with love. I met Mark in our junior year of college. He was different back then, or maybe I just wanted him to be. He was charming, funny, the captain of the debate team, and he seemed to see me in a way no one else had. He had this way of looking at me, like I was the only person in the room, that made me feel like I could do anything. He came from a well-established family in Connecticut. They owned a successful high-end construction business. Mason and Son Construction, a name that meant something in that part of the state. I was just a girl from Florida, on a full academic scholarship, with nothing to my name but good grades and a lot of ambition. His mother, Barbara, hated me from day one. I mean, hated me. It wasn't just dislike. It was a visceral, palpable disdain. I wasn't their kind. I didn't come from old money. I didn't have a pedigree. My father was a mailman, my mother a nurse. To Barbara, I was white trash with a good vocabulary. But Mark, to his credit back then, stood up for me. He told her he loved me, and that was that. We got married a year after graduation, a small, beautiful ceremony that my mother scraped together every penny she had to pay for, because Barbara made it clear she wouldn't be funding a mistake. That was the first mistake. Mine, I mean. Not the marriage, but what came immediately after, accepting their generous offer. Just move in with me for a year or two, Barbara had said, her smile as tight as a drum, her eyes like little chips of ice. The house is far too big for just me now that David is gone. You two can save up a massive down payment for your own place. It's the smart, sensible thing to do. Mark, of course, thought this was a brilliant idea. He was so excited. "My mom is amazing, Em. She just wants to help us get started. We'll have a down payment in no time." So we moved into the sprawling, immaculate, and utterly cold colonial house in a wealthy New England suburb. The 1 or 2 years turned into 3, then 5, then 10. 10 years, an entire decade of my youth, gone. My life. It wasn't even a life anymore. It dissolved into an endless, repeating blur of chores and the kind of quiet, daily humiliations that eat away at your soul, one tiny bite at a time. Mark started working for the family business, Mason and Son. The son in the title. He'd leave at 7 a.m. in a crisp suit that I had ironed and come home at 7 p.m., expecting dinner on the table, a drink in his hand, and a perfectly silent, peaceful home. My own ambitions? My degree in finance? They were put on the back burner so fast they were practically frozen. Barbara made it clear that Mark's career comes first, dear. He's the man of the house, the heir. Your job is to support him. A stable home is the foundation of a great career. I found a part-time remote job doing bookkeeping for a small firm. It was something, a thread, a tiny lifeline to the person I used to be. But in that house, I wasn't a finance professional. I was the cook. I was the cleaner. I was the laundress. I was the gardener. I was the personal assistant. I was the dog walker. And we didn't even have a dog. Barbara ran the house like a tyrant, a petty dictator of her own beige kingdom. My day started at 5 a.m., not 5:01, 5 a.m. I had to wake up before her, tiptoe downstairs in the dark, and make her specific, absurdly complicated coffee. Half calf, 1 packet of stevia, a dash of cinnamon, and precisely 1 tablespoon of unsweetened almond milk, frothed to exactly 140 degrees. I had to use a thermometer. If it was too hot, she'd sigh loudly. "My goodness, Emily, are you trying to scald me?" And pour it right down the drain in front of me. If it was too cold, she'd accuse me of not caring, of being lazy. After her coffee was delivered to her in her sitting room, I'd make Mark's breakfast, pack his lunch. He liked his sandwiches cut diagonally, crusts off, like a 10-year-old. And then, only then, if I was lucky, could I start my own remote work for a few hours. But the work was constantly interrupted. It was like she had a sixth sense for when I was in the middle of a complex spreadsheet. "Emily, the dust on these baseboards is disgraceful. Did you even look at them?" "Emily, I'm having my bridge club over at 2. I need you to make those little cucumber sandwiches they like. And the mini quiches, and don't burn the crust this time." "Emily, the silver needs polishing. I can see my reflection, but it's not crisp. My part-time job, my only connection to the outside world, was squeezed into the cracks of my day, late at night, when everyone else was asleep and the house was finally quiet, my eyes burning from exhaustion." Then there was Tiffany. Oh God, Tiffany. My sister-in-law. Mark's older brother, David, had married her 5 years ago. They lived in a ridiculously expensive condo downtown, but they were at Barbara's house every single day. David worked with Mark and Tiffany. Well, Tiffany didn't work. Tiffany's job was to spend David's money, get weekly spa treatments, and make my life a living hell. She was Barbara's parrot, her little sidekick, her apprentice in the art of cruelty. While I was on my hands and knees scrubbing the grout in the guest bathroom with a toothbrush, Tiffany would be sitting on the velvet sofa, filing her acrylic nails and critiquing my work. "You missed a spot, Emily," she'd call out, not even looking up from her phone, her voice dripping with boredom. "Honestly, I don't know how you let it get this bad. It's just gross. When I have my own house, I'm hiring professionals. You get what you pay for, I guess." And then she'd laugh, that high-pitched, grating, hyena-like laugh. And Barbara, sitting right there, would join in. "Now, Tiffany, be nice. Emily is trying her best. We can't all be perfect. She just wasn't raised with our standards, bless her heart." They were a team, a 2-woman comedy act where I was the only joke. Every holiday was a public performance of my servitude. At Thanksgiving, I'd be in the kitchen by 4 a.m., roasting the turkey, making 9 different complicated side dishes from Barbara's ancestral recipes, and baking 3 kinds of pies from scratch. Tiffany would waltz in at 2 p.m., wearing a new dress, hand me a cheap bottle of white wine for the cook, and then complain that the mashed potatoes were lumpier than last year. Mark? Mark would be in the living room with his brother, watching football, yelling, "Smells great, hun!" from the couch, never once setting foot in the kitchen to offer help. When I'd finally sit down, exhausted, my feet aching, my back screaming, Barbara would immediately say, "Emily, dear, could you grab the extra gravy boat? And Tiffany needs a refill on her Chardonnay. And the rolls are getting cold. Pop them back in the oven, would you?" I was never a guest. I was never family. I was the staff, and I wasn't even getting paid. And the whole time, Mark, my husband, he just let it happen. He watched it all. When I'd try to talk to him late at night in the privacy of our bedroom, our one safe space, he'd shut me down before I could even get the words out. Can you just not, please? I'm tired. It was a long day. She's just particular. That's how she shows she cares. She just wants things to be nice for us. Babe, Tiffany is just joking. She has a weird sense of humor, you know that. Why do you always have to make things so difficult? Why do you always have to be so sensitive? Just keep the peace, Em. It's just easier for everyone. Easier for him, he meant. He was a coward. A weak, spineless, terrified coward. A man-child hiding behind his mother's skirt, perfectly happy to trade his wife's dignity and sanity for a quiet life, a hot meal, and his mother's approval. Now, let's talk about the money. The real leverage. The invisible chain they thought they had around my neck. A few months before Mark and I got married, my grandmother, my Nana, passed away. She was the only person in my family besides my mom who ever really saw me. She was tough, smart, and she saw right through the Mason family charm. She left me everything she had. It wasn't a fortune, not by their standards, but it was mine. $50,000. It was my nest egg, my in case of emergency fund, my escape fund, though I didn't know it at the time. I told Mark about it, of course. I was excited. It was a start for us. And Mark, of course, in his naive, idiotic honesty, told his mother. I will never forget the conversation. It's burned into my memory. We were in Barbara's perfectly manicured, prize-winning garden. She was pruning roses with a pair of terrifyingly sharp, surgical-looking shears. Emily, dear, she started, not looking at me, just snipping away at a flawless rosebud. Mark told me about your little windfall. That's lovely, just lovely. She snipped another bud. He and I were talking. Since you'll be living here, saving so much money on rent and food, she conveniently forgot I was paying for all the groceries and working off the rent. It would be a wonderful gesture of goodwill, of family, to put that $50,000 into a joint savings account for your future home. With me. I just stared at her. The shears stopped snipping. With you, Barbara? Why with you? It's for me and Mark. She finally turned to look at me, her eyes as cold and gray as a winter sky. Well, dear, I have experience in these matters. You're still so young. You don't want to just let it sit in a low-interest account, do you? That's irresponsible. I can help you manage it. Make it grow. It will be the foundation of your life with Mark. A true partnership. A sign that you are truly one of us. I have a degree in finance, Barbara, I said, my voice barely a whisper, already knowing I was losing. I know how to manage it. Oh, a degree, she said with a dismissive wave of her shears, a tiny, cruel smile playing on her lips. That's very cute. How adorable. This is the real world, Emily. This is about family legacy, something you wouldn't understand. Mark, tell her. And Mark, my future husband, the man who was supposed to be my partner, just smiled his easy, charming frat boy smile and put his arm around my shoulder, pulling me in. Mom's a genius with this stuff. She managed the company's books for 20 years before she retired. It's for us. It shows we're a team, a family. What's the big deal? Don't you trust me? Don't you trust my mom? I looked at his hopeful, pleading face. I looked at Barbara's expectant, demanding, unblinking stare. I was 23 years old, in love, stupidly in love, and desperate to be accepted, to finally belong. So I did it. I gave in. I signed the papers. I walked into the bank with her and I put my $50,000 inheritance, every penny my grandmother had left me, into a joint high-yield savings account with Barbara's name on it alongside mine. "For safety," she'd said with a pat on my hand. What that really meant, what I'd soon learn, was that 2 signatures were required for any withdrawal over $500. My signature, and hers. For 10 years, that $50,000 was the invisible chain around my neck. It was the excuse for everything. Every time I even thought about pushing back, every time Tiffany made a crack about my cheap clothes or my old car, Barbara would find a way to bring it up. We must all be so careful with our spending, mustn't we? We have that house fund to think about. We all have to make sacrifices. Emily knows that. Don't you, dear? Living here, rent-free, all to protect your little investment. They made me feel like I owed them. They took my money, my one piece of independence, and they twisted it, weaponized it, until it became a debt I could never repay. They used my own inheritance as justification for my enslavement. It was brilliant, in a sick, twisted Machiavellian way. They had me completely and totally trapped, or so they thought. They really, truly thought they had won. Last Tuesday, the illusion of my life, the fragile little snow globe I was living in, didn't just crack. It shattered. I was on my hands and knees, scrubbing the kitchen floor. It was my deep clean day. Tiffany was at the kitchen island, scrolling through Instagram, complaining about the noise I was making with the scrub brush. "Can you be any louder, Emily? I'm trying to watch a story. It's so inconsiderate." My phone, on the counter, started to buzz. It was my sister from Florida. I never get calls from her in the middle of the day. It's our unspoken rule. My heart immediately lurched. I wiped my raw, red, bleach-smelling hands on my apron and answered. "Hello? Emily, it's Mom." My sister was crying. Not just crying, but sobbing, hyperventilating. My heart stopped. Just stopped. She fell. Down the stairs at her condo. It's bad, Em. It's really bad. It's her hip. She broke it. She's at the hospital. She needs emergency surgery. I felt the blood drain from my face. The kitchen tilted. "Oh my God, is she okay? I'm booking a flight right now. I'll be there tonight." "That's the other thing," my sister sobbed, her voice breaking. "Her insurance, it's not going to cover all of it. There's a huge deductible and a copay for the surgeon, the best one. We need, God, Em, I don't know what to do. We need $15,000 by tomorrow morning. Or they won't do the surgery. They'll just, I don't know. They'll give her a cheaper doctor," they said. My mom. My sweet, gentle mom. The only person in the world who truly, unconditionally loved me. The woman who worked 2 jobs her entire life to send me to college. The woman Barbara and Tiffany loved to mock for her common Florida accent and her tacky clothes. My mom was in pain, and they were refusing to help her over money. "Don't worry," I said, my voice shaking, but a sudden cold calm starting to creep in. "I have it. I have the money. I'll wire it today. Just stay with her. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm on my way. I'll handle it." I hung up. I was shaking, but for the first time in years, I had a purpose. A clear, singular purpose. I stood up, my knees cracking. I ignored Tiffany's "who died" remark as I walked past her. I walked into the living room where Mark was on his laptop, working from home, which meant watching YouTube videos of golf swings. Barbara was there too, reading the Wall Street Journal, of course. "Mark?" I said. My voice was tight, strained. That was my sister. "Mom, my mom fell. She's in the hospital. She needs emergency surgery on her hip. They need $15,000 by tomorrow morning for the surgeon." Mark looked up, his face pale. "Oh my God, babe. That's terrible. Is she?" "She's in pain." I cut him off. "I need to go to the bank. Right now. I need to wire her the money from the house fund." from my inheritance. It happened so fast. Barbara's newspaper snapped down. Her face was a mask of cold, reptilian fury. Absolutely not. I stopped. I physically froze. I thought I had misheard her. What? You are not touching that money, Barbara said, her voice low and dangerous. She stood up. That money is for your and Mark's future. It is an investment. It is not for some clumsy accident. The air in my lungs just vanished. I couldn't breathe. Barbara, that is my money. My grandmother left it to me. For my family. My mother is in a hospital. She is in pain. She needs surgery. This isn't a negotiation. I highly doubt that, Barbara sneered, her lip curling. This sounds very convenient. She probably just wants a handout, knowing you married into a good family. Florida people are like that, always looking for a scam, a sob story. You are not throwing away $15,000 of this family's future on her little drama. This family's future? I was screaming now. The 10 years of silence, of patience, of keeping the peace, it shattered. All of it. That's my mother. That $50,000 is mine. It has always been mine. It is ours, Barbara screamed back, her face turning a blotchy, ugly purple. It's in my name too, young lady. Remember that. And I will not approve the withdrawal. Mark, tell your wife to calm down. She's hysterical. She's lost her mind. This was it. The moment. The precipice. I turned to my husband. The man I had loved. The man I had served for a decade. My eyes were pleading. I was begging him, non-verbally. Please, be my husband. Be a man. Choose me. Just this once. Choose me. Mark. Please, it's my mom. Mark wouldn't look at me. He stared at his laptop screen. He ran a hand through his perfect hair. He looked at his mother's furious face, then at the antique rug on the floor. And then he said the words that ended our marriage. He said the words that signed his own death warrant. Come on, Mom's right. It's a lot of money. And that account is for our house, for our future. You know, maybe your sister can take out a loan, or your mom can sell some of her jewelry. She has that nice necklace, right? Just don't make a scene. We can talk about this later when you're not so emotional. He wouldn't even look at me. He chose her. He chose his mother and the money over my mother's health. Over me. It wasn't a crack. It wasn't a slow burn. It was a snap. A clean, surgical break. The 10 years of scrubbing, serving, silencing myself and hoping, it all evaporated in that single horrifying second. The love I felt for him, the loyalty, the shared history, all those college memories. It turned to ash and blew away. I wasn't looking at my husband anymore. I was looking at a stranger. A weak, pathetic, hollow stranger. A puppet. I didn't cry. I didn't scream anymore. All the emotion just drained away, replaced by something cold and hard and clear. I just nodded, slowly. You're right, I said. My voice was so calm, it startled them both. It even startled me. You're absolutely right. It's not worth making a scene over. Barbara smiled, a triumphant, ugly little smirk. She thought she'd won. Good. I'm glad you're finally seeing reason, dear. Now be a doll and go finish that floor. The smell of bleach is giving me a headache, and I'm sure Tiffany is hungry. I didn't answer. I just turned around, my back straight, and walked out of the living room. I walked right past Tiffany, who was now standing in the doorway with a smug look on her face. About time, she called after me. Some of us are trying to relax. I went up the stairs to our bedroom. I went inside, and I locked the door. I sat on the edge of the bed for 1, 2, 3 seconds, just breathing. In, out. Then I stood up. I did not call my sister. I did not call the airline. I called my bank. My real bank. You see, Barbara and Mark made a fatal assumption. They assumed that because I was quiet, I was stupid. Because I was serving them, I was worthless. They thought that part-time bookkeeping job I had? They thought it paid me minimum wage, just enough for my little personal things, as Barbara so condescendingly called them. What they never, ever bothered to ask in 10 long years was what my job actually was. I wasn't just a bookkeeper. I was a forensic accountant. That small firm I worked for? It was a boutique consultancy based in New York, and I was one of their top remote agents. I specialized in finding hidden assets in high-net-worth divorces. I was, to put it mildly, extremely good at my job. My part-time work, which I did late at night after my real job of being their maid was over, earned me over $200,000 a year. For 10 years. For 10 years, I had been hiding it. 90% of every single paycheck went straight into a private, high-yield investment account in my name and my name alone. An account based in Switzerland just to be safe. While I was wearing $20 jeans from Target and letting them mock my shabby appearance, I was quietly building an empire. While they were lording my $50,000 inheritance over me, acting like they were my saviors, I was amassing a fortune they couldn't even dream of. It was my secret, my power, my delicious, delicious joke that I told only to myself. That $50,000 in the joint account? That wasn't my nest egg. That was bait. It was a test, a 10-year-long test of their character. And they had just failed in the most spectacular, definitive way possible. I sat on that bed, the lock clicked shut, and I made 3 phone calls. The first was to the hospital in Florida. I spoke to the billing department. I paid the entire $15,000 surgical bill with my personal American Express. Then I paid for my mother to be moved to the best private suite in the hospital. Then I paid for a first-class ticket for my sister to fly home, she lived in Oregon, and for a private, full-time nurse to care for my mother for the next 6 weeks so my sister wouldn't have to. I paid for it all. The second call was to the top divorce lawyer in the state of Connecticut, the kind of shark who eats men like Mark and women like Barbara for breakfast. I explained the situation. The 10 years of servitude, the controlled $50,000 inheritance, the hidden income. The lawyer's excitement was almost audible through the phone. "Oh, Ms. Mason," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "We are not just going to get you a divorce. We are going to get you justice. And that little joint account? That's fraud by inducement. We're going to get that back, with interest. And spousal support? Oh, yes." The third call was to a moving company, a high-end, discreet one. I booked a team for 9 a.m. the next morning. To move what? Not much. Just my clothes, my personal computer, my grandmother's portrait, and my files. They could keep the rest of the beige, lifeless, expensive furniture Barbara had picked out. When I was done, I stood up. I went into the master bathroom and I took a long, hot shower. I washed the bleach and the betrayal and the last 10 years of grime off my skin. I watched the water circle the drain, and I imagined it was my old life. I got out, and I didn't put on my usual worn-out sweatpants and faded t-shirt. I opened the back of the closet, past the Emily clothes, to where my real clothes were hidden. I put on a sharp, black, tailored Tom Ford pantsuit. I put on the $1,200 Christian Louboutin heels I had bought myself last month, and never, ever worn in this house. I did my hair, pulling it back into a sleek, severe chignon. I put on makeup. Not the simple lip gloss I was allowed, but a full face. Contoured, smoky eyes, and red lipstick. A dark, blood-red lipstick. I looked in the mirror. The perfect Emily was gone. The doormat was gone. The woman looking back at me was a CEO, a predator, a woman who had just been released from a 10-year prison sentence, and she was hungry. I packed one suitcase, essentials only. Then, I unlocked the bedroom door, and I walked downstairs. It was 7:30 p.m. They were all in the dining room. Barbara, Mark, and Tiffany. They were sitting at the formal dining table, which was empty. No food, no plates, no placemats. They were waiting for their dinner. For me to serve them dinner. I could see the irritation on their faces, the storm clouds gathering. The first thing they heard was the click-clack of my heels on the hardwood floor. It was a sound they had never heard in this house, a sound of power. They all looked up. Their jaws dropped. All three of them. Barbara's eyes went wide. Tiffany literally dropped her empty fork. Mark? He just looked confused, his mouth hanging open. "Emily?" Mark said, standing up, his napkin falling to the floor. What are you wearing? Where have you been?" "We're starving. What about dinner?" I walked slowly, deliberately, into the dining room. I didn't go to the kitchen. I stood at the head of the table, right where Mark's father used to sit. I placed my black leather purse on the table with a soft, expensive thud. "Dinner?" I said, my voice as cold and clear as glass. "I have no idea. The chicken is still in the freezer. But you're a big boy, Mark. I'm sure you can figure out how to use the microwave. Or maybe." I tilted my head and smiled at Tiffany, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Maybe Tiffany can finally make herself useful for the first time in her entire parasitic life. You know how to boil water, don't you, dear? Or is that too complicated? Tiffany sputtered, her face turning red. "How dare you? Who do you think you are?" "Quiet," Barbara snapped, her eyes narrowed at me, her brain finally catching up. "What is the meaning of this, Emily? What is this little performance? Is it about the money? You're not getting it? The discussion is over." "Oh, I know," I said. I pulled my wheeled suitcase, which I had left in the hall, and placed it next to me. "I don't need it." You see, while I was upstairs calming down, I made a few calls. I looked at Mark, at his stupid, confused face. "My mother's surgery is already paid for, in full. She's in the best private suite in the hospital. So you don't have to worry about that, Mark. Your precious house fund is safe." Mark let out a literal, audible breath of relief. "Oh, thank God, Em. See? I told you it would work out. Your sister must have gotten the loan. That's great." I laughed. It was a short, bitter, ugly sound. "No, Mark. I paid for it. With the money I earned from the job you never bothered to ask about. The job I've had for 10 years. "What are you talking about?" Barbara said, her composure cracking, her voice rising. "Your little typing job?" "You don't have that kind of money. You're lying." "Don't I?" I smiled. "That's the funny thing about assumptions, Barbara. They make you look stupid. You thought I was a maid. You were so convinced I was beneath you. You never realized I was a forensic accountant making 6 figures for the last 10 years. You were so busy counting my $50,000. You never noticed the millions I was hiding from you? Right under your roof, their faces. Oh God, their faces. It was better than any meal I had ever cooked. It was a feast." Shock, disbelief, rage, and for the first time, the most delicious emotion of all, fear. "But that's not my favorite call," I continued, savoring every single word, drawing it out. "My favorite call was to my new lawyer, Mr. Harrison. He's an absolute shark. He's fascinated by our little joint account. He used some very interesting words. Fraud, coercion, financial abuse, intentional infliction of emotional distress. He is so excited to meet you, Barbara. And the IRS is going to be very interested in the undeclared, unpaid household employee you've had for the last decade. Barbara went as white as a sheet. She actually clutched her pearls. Emily! Wait! Mark pleaded, finally finding his voice, finally understanding he was in danger. He walked toward me, his hands out, like he was trying to calm a wild animal. Babe, stop. You're just angry. We can talk about this. You can't leave. This is your home. We're family. I looked at him, the man I once loved. I felt nothing. No, that's a lie. I felt pity, and I felt disgust. This was never my home, Mark. This was my prison. And you were my guard, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. I picked up my purse and the handle of my suitcase. Oh, and one more thing, I said, pausing at the door of the dining room. Mr. Harrison will be sending over some papers to your office on Monday. You should read them. It's our divorce. I'm taking you for everything you have. I'm taking my $50,000 back, with 10 years of compound interest. I'm taking half the value of this house, which my free labor helped maintain and increase the value of. And I'm taking my life back. I turned and walked to the front door. I could hear them scrambling behind me. Emily! Mark screamed, running after me, his voice cracking with panic. You can't do this! I love you! I stopped. I had my hand on the doorknob. I turned around one last time. I looked at him, a desperate, crying child in a man's body. I looked past him at Barbara, who was clutching her chest, and Tiffany, who was just frozen, her tiny brain unable to process. No, Mark, I said, and my voice was soft, but it was the final cut. You don't love me? You loved what I did for you. You loved the convenience. You loved the silence. You loved your maid. But that woman is gone. She died this afternoon. You should be careful what you wish for. I opened the front door. The cool, crisp New England night air hit my face. It was the first breath of free air I'd taken in 10 years. It tasted like victory. Enjoy your dinner, I said. And I walked out, closing the door softly, firmly behind me, leaving them in the silent, empty, perfect house, in the ruins of the perfect life they had built on my back.